What if you couldn't hear a single note? Could you still become the greatest composer in history? This isn't a hypothetical. This is a true story of a man who turned the cruelest twist of fate into an immortal symphony. This is the story of Ludwig van Beethoven. Vienna, a cold winter day in 1827. A man lies on his deathbed, eyes staring into the ceiling. He hears nothing. No one knows what he's thinking. But in his mind, there might be a symphony rising. Wild, tragic, and free. That was the final moment of Beethoven, the musical genius who wrestled with destiny his whole life and won through the very music he created. Beethoven was born in 1770 in Bonn, Germany. His father, Johann, was a court singer, alcoholic and abusive. From an early age, Ludwig was forced to practice piano for hours, through tears and beatings. His father didn't just want a talented son, he wanted the next Mozart. Ludwig gave his first public performance at age 7, but his father lied on the poster, claiming the boy was only 6, just like Mozart had been. A childhood stolen by ambition and alcohol. But music was the only place young Ludwig found freedom. After his mother's death, Beethoven left Bonn at age 22, with little more than hope and a few coins, and traveled to Vienna, the music capital of Europe. There, he studied under Joseph Haydn, the father of symphony. Though their relationship wasn't close, Beethoven quickly dazzled the Viennese elite with his intense, passionate piano playing, a far cry from the polished elegance of the classical era. He became a regular guest in noble salons, made friends with aristocrats, and found patrons who gave him the freedom to compose. It seemed fate was finally smiling on him. Then came a nightmare. At the height of his career, Beethoven realized something horrifying. He was going deaf. The notes on the piano grew faint. Conversations became distant. A curse for anyone, but a death sentence for a musician. In 1802, while resting in Heiligenstadt, he wrote a letter to his brothers, the Heiligenstadt Testament. He confessed that he had considered ending his life. But then he wrote, "It was art that held me back. I could not leave the world until I had given all that I felt was within me." Beethoven didn't choose death. He chose to live, and to compose as if every note were his final goodbye. From that point, his music transformed. It was no longer just elegant sonatas. It became a voice for the human soul. Symphony No. 3, Eroica, originally dedicated to Napoleon, a symbol of liberty. But when Napoleon declared himself emperor, Beethoven tore the page in fury. Symphony No. 5, opening with 4 legendary notes: short, 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 long. Fate knocking at the door. Symphony No. 6, Pastoral, a love letter to nature, his refuge from pain. And countless concertos, sonatas, and chamber pieces, all composed by a man who couldn't hear sound but could listen to the soul. Beethoven loved deeply, but was never loved in return. He fell for noble women, forbidden loves. He wrote the famous Letter to the Immortal Beloved, but to this day, no one knows who she was. In loneliness and longing, he poured everything into his music: sorrow, passion, joy. In his final decade, Beethoven was completely deaf. He couldn't hear a single note, a bird's song, even his own footsteps. For most musicians, that would be the end. But for Beethoven, it was just the beginning of a new realm where he heard through his heart. And then, he composed Symphony No. 9, a masterpiece that broke every rule. For the first time in history, a symphony included not just instruments, but human voices. A chorus, a message. Alle Menschen werden Brüder, all men shall be brothers. The final movement, Ode to Joy, became more than a song. It became a symbol of humanity and the yearning for freedom. It would later become the anthem of the European Union, and one of the few musical pieces carved into the golden record sent into space. May 7, 1824. At the Kärntner Theater in Vienna, Symphony No. 9 was performed for the first time. Though completely deaf, Beethoven insisted on conducting. A second conductor stood beside him to guide the orchestra. Beethoven's presence was symbolic, but powerful. He didn't hear the music. He didn't hear the trumpets, the timpani, the triumphant voices of the choir. And when the piece ended, when the audience erupted in applause, he still stood with his back turned. A soprano stepped forward and gently turned him around. Then he saw it. The entire hall on their feet, some weeping, all clapping. Thunderous ovation, roaring praise. And though he couldn't hear a sound, Beethoven felt every bit of it, through their tears, their eyes, their trembling hands. It was one of the greatest moments in musical history, when a deaf man made the entire world listen. A deaf man made the world listen. In his final years, Beethoven lived in near total isolation, plagued by chronic illness, digestive pain, liver disease, depression. Medicine couldn't help. His apartment became his prison. He wrote in conversation notebooks because he could no longer hear speech. In 1826, after traveling in the cold, he caught pneumonia, which turned into liver failure and dropsy. Doctors tried draining his abdomen, but it was too late. On March 26, 1827, during a violent thunderstorm, Beethoven died. People say that as lightning struck, he raised his fist to the sky, as if one last defiance against fate itself. Then, silence. A final thunderclap, like the heavens themselves applauding the end of his life symphony. Over 0 people attended his funeral, an unprecedented number for a composer. In death, as in life, Beethoven remained a mystery. Later studies of his hair revealed lead poisoning, possibly from wine or utensils. He also had liver disease, perhaps genetic or viral. Some speculated syphilis based on his romantic life and symptoms. Even his skull and hair became objects of study and debate, passed down, tested, questioned, as if his story still hadn't finished playing out. Beethoven's last whispered words were, "Clap your hands now, the play is over." It could have been a goodbye to life, or just the final, poetic note in his greatest composition, existence itself. But really, the play never ended. Every time Ode to Joy is played in a concert hall, every time a sonata is performed, every time someone hears the story of a man who couldn't hear but changed the sound of humanity, Beethoven lives on. In every note, in every soul still listening. Beethoven proved this: art doesn't need perfection, it needs a heart. He was deaf, yet he created the world's most powerful music. He was in pain, yet gave the world joy. He lived alone, yet was loved by millions after his death. So the next time you hear music, a symphony, a quiet piano note, maybe, just maybe, it's Beethoven whispering, "Don't surrender to fate, turn it into music." Beethoven didn't just write music. He wrote a hymn to the human spirit, where willpower triumphs over destiny. And if you believe that greatness can bloom in adversity, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this story with someone who needs to hear a song of hope.